Hey there! I've got some news for you. A federal appeals court made a ruling on Monday that could have a major impact on the Voting Rights Act. The ruling stated that private citizens and civil rights groups would no longer be able to file lawsuits under a key provision of the law. This provision, known as Section 2, prohibits discriminatory voting practices based on race. The decision was made by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit, but it's likely to be appealed to the Supreme Court. In recent years, the conservative majority on the Supreme Court has issued several rulings that have weakened the Voting Rights Act. However, they have also upheld the law in some cases, such as a ruling in June that found Alabama had drawn a racially discriminatory congressional map. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965 and was a major achievement of the civil rights movement. It aimed to undo discriminatory laws and protect against racial gerrymandering. However, the law has faced legal challenges since its inception, and court decisions over the years have weakened key provisions, including the requirement for states with a history of voting discrimination to obtain federal approval before changing their voting laws. The recent decision by the Court of Appeals found that the text of the Voting Rights Act did not explicitly grant private citizens the right to file lawsuits under the law. Therefore, the court concluded that only the federal government could bring legal challenges under Section 2. If this ruling stands, it would remove a crucial aspect of the Voting Rights Act. Most challenges to discriminatory laws and racial gerrymanders have come from private citizens and civil rights groups. Wendy Weiser, the director of the Democracy Program at the Brennan Center for Justice, called the decision a devastating near-death blow to the law. However, Weiser also expressed surprise if the decision were to stand, given decades of legal precedent and recent Supreme Court rulings. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has been at the center of many civil rights and voting rights cases, including the recent Supreme Court ruling against Alabama's map and a challenge to a voter identification law in Texas. Conservative legal scholars have praised the decision, arguing that it prevents the Voting Rights Act from being used for political purposes. Jason Sneed, the executive director of the Honest Elections Project, a conservative group, called it a win for Arkansas and for the rule of law. The debate over who can bring Section 2 claims took a significant turn in February 2022 when a district judge in Arkansas appointed by former President Donald J. Trump ruled that only the Attorney General of the United States could bring suit to enforce Section 2. The decision was then appealed to the Eighth Circuit, which largely agreed with the previous ruling in a 2-1 decision. Proponents of the law and its use by private citizens point to statements made by Congress in 1982 when the Voting Rights Act was amended. In a report accompanying the changes, the House and Senate Judiciary Committees stated that citizens should have a private cause of action to enforce their rights under Section 2. However, the appeals court rejected this argument, stating that the committee's report did not provide evidence that a private right of action existed from the beginning. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has faced legal challenges before, but the Supreme Court has previously upheld it. In 2021, the court ruled that Section 2 could be used to strike down voting restrictions that disproportionately burdened minority voters. The battle over voting rights has intensified since the 2020 election, with Republican-led state legislatures passing laws that add new restrictions to voting. Sophia Lynn Lakin, the director of the Voting Rights Project at the ACLU, called the Monday ruling a travesty for democracy, and expressed concern about the future of the Voting Rights Act. That's the latest update on the Voting Rights Act. Stay tuned for more news on this important issue.